Let's start also easy, I would say. Let's start with nature. So if you think about all the cyber threats that are right now happening, which animal does it resemble and why? Because if you go to conferences, you see all the dragons, you see all the sharks, you see all the things. Yeah, so...
Can I?
Yeah, you want to start?
I would say mosquitoes. It's no matter how you're going to try to keep them out, they will come in your building.
I hate mosquitoes, so...
Me too.
Yeah, I was also thinking about some kind of parasite. Yeah, maybe a tick bug is the next one, but a mosquito, I think, is the good one.
I was thinking actually about something more deadly.
Yes.
So, yeah, sorry. I think tarantula. You know, they are quiet, they are nearby, and they can be deadly.
So I was thinking more of like a amorphous deep-sea creature lurking, and you know it's there. You don't know exactly what it is, but it stings if you hit it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what you see. All the conferences always red and dangerous and so on. And let's try to mitigate a bit and help and make it green and like a bear. Okay, a bear is also dangerous sometimes. Like a teddy bear, perhaps, like from a bear to the teddy bear. But yeah, all jokes aside, what do you guys see in all your different organizations, perhaps from different perspectives? What is changing lately in the cyber threat landscape?
So I come from a fashion industry. We have a specific set of threats in e-commerce. I wouldn't say that much has changed, to be honest. So maybe what I have two perspectives. Yeah, one perspective is looking at the threat landscape of an e-commerce business, and the other one looking at the general threat landscape, just stuff that I hear from peers or that I read on the internet. Maybe what I see changing all the time are the phishing attacks and how creative they are and how they are changing according to the, let's say, security measures that are put in place to prevent them. So they always find a way to come back, and yeah, the same goes with malware stuff, always evolving, but the motivations are all the same. I think that stuff doesn't change at all. The motivation is to make money. That's the most common one. The other one is espionage, but maybe the others deal with that, but in e-commerce, we don't deal with that level of sophistication.
Yeah, building on your phishing one, I'm also really surprised that right now, even at DataGuard, we have a great supporting system, as you're going to hear in a second. Like interns the very first day get messages with my or Thomas' voice, pretending that that's us asking for the password, which is impressive because you have to know a lot of things to come this together at scale. You know, I think that is like what is now possible, and I think GenAI comes into place to link into the other one, but also to what level of complexity now did this.
Yeah, and that to me as a representative of small companies, so we don't have a huge IT security department, we don't have a huge HR department. So much of what we do relies on our employees and on sort of lower level plausibility checks in our hiring procedures, in our like vetting of suppliers. And so I don't see anything, or nothing has happened yet, but you can see that, you know, creating a fake identity and making it really plausible, that has become way easier. So from our industry, it's a cool thing as well, because that's exactly what we need to do for digital learning and training. So we can provide realistic scenarios, we can provide realistic characters. But when it comes to our day-to-day operations, you know, that is becoming harder. I mean, if you get the average spam mail of send $1 million to Nigeria, I mean, everybody kind of by now knows that it's very low likelihood that you're going to get your money back. But if it's becoming more plausible and indistinguishable from reality, that's potentially for smaller scale companies, we need to find different ways of dealing with that.
Yeah, even for large scale, I would say. Sorry, Kivanç. We had last week a company. So one of the most aggressive forms of breaches that we're seeing in the last couple of weeks is through Teams, phishing attempt through Teams. We all use Teams. We all know it. You know, we use it a lot. We train our employees on mail phishing, you know, especially the first employees, getting someone from the CEO, buy the gift cards, everything. So now they kind of spoof the CEO in Teams. They send a invite for a meeting where they're going to restructure the whole company. No one will decline the invitation. So last week we had a 1,600 employee company. 500 of them clicked within the first 30 minutes, and we manually had to throw the attackers out of there. All of them. It's like hyper aggressive. It's really hard to tackle. The current state-of-the-art technologies that guys like you are using as well, EDR, XDR kind of technologies. I will not go into detail. Don't worry. But they have a really hard time dealing with it, it's the sophistication of it that's becoming very complex. Not only for the small ones, it's also for the larger ones.
Going back to your question, actually, the parallel, we are part of nature. So we have to adopt. It's all around us. It develops. And I think my background is I come from an insurance environment. And insurance love to help customers to, when things go wrong, to restore. But we better avoid that things go wrong. And what DataGuard is doing is help you, to give you, let's say, the guidelines, to be prepared. But there is a whole gap in the middle. And that's something I think what we can really urge here. If you really want to think about risk mitigation, it goes beyond what we currently do. And so what Joppe just was telling, there are a lot of companies investing in all kinds of technologies to secure yourself. We are buying very expensive insurance, but this one employee, or in this case within a couple of minutes, a lot of them, all of them open the door to your company. And traditional, mind you, measurements like a multi-factor, it doesn't work. So it's complex.
So let's keep on the track. What can we do against it to prevent? Who wants to be first?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing is accept that you will be breached. So the idea that you can keep your company completely secured from the outside, that's just not possible anymore. Has never been possible, but it's definitely not anymore possible now. In my 20 years experience in this field, I never saw a network that we couldn't get into. If you want to, you can always get into. But once an attacker gets in, it's much easier to find it. I think what we have been doing in the past is putting too much effort on preventive measures. We put firewalls, we put virus scanners, all kind of stuff to avoid attackers getting into your systems. But I think what's very important is that you take the next step as a company and that you will be able to see if there's something wrong inside the systems and then act on that very rapidly. It's called the reduction of the impact. That's, I think, a very important step that you have to take now as a company.
And so, coming from a long HR background, I think of people, because and again, coming from a small company perspective, because we don't have tons of budget to have the high level intrusion detection processes. Sometimes we don't need it though, because our people, we have a small tight-knit team. So first of all, we have a second layer of security. What is normal in our company? What are behaviors? What are ways of use systems that are normal and which are outside of the normal? But then I think the second step is have a culture of risk awareness, but also a culture of taking accountability. So like when the first step is, you click on an email, but then what do you do when you've clicked on an email? Are you going to delete the email and hide it and scramble and say, I don't care if it hits my company as long as nobody finds out it's been me? Or am I taking accountability and saying, I'm going to open a security ticket, it's been me. And then how do you as management react? So I think it's this culture thing. And I think it's another topic we may discuss today. But for us, it's really the systems thing is one piece, but it's really the culture and the people, awareness and trust.
Vladyslav, perhaps a good question to you. How much of the percentage are you guys investing in systems and how much in people? About you?
You mean
in energy?
Money-wise?
Energy, you can say. You don't have to share money.
So with the people, definitely we invest quite a lot, and we started investing even more. I agree that the security culture is very important, and up until a certain point, the human firewall can protect you, but as you grow bigger and bigger and bigger, just statistically you will see people who just don't care. Seriously, like I have seen in the last 5 years measuring all the phishing simulations, it's like 4 to 5% of people, they will just click on pretty much anything. And maybe after 1,000 employees in the company, that percentage would just remain the same. So yeah, we keep investing. I cannot tell you the percentage because we don't measure that kind of stuff. It's quite a bit. So we started also, we started with security awareness training for every employee. Now we have also developed one for developers specifically because that is a big attack vector. I think the danger that comes from developers is the confidence, because very often they think that they know it all. No offense to any developers, but there is this kind that, you know, they got the permissions. The company is, the company wants them to develop fast because that brings in money. At the same time, it brings a lot of danger. Yeah, because in all our business departments and in the fashion department, if I approach the management and say, like, hey, we have to restrict permissions of those people here because they really don't need it, and it's a risk. Yeah, fine, sure, go ahead. Me trying to touch developers, like, you know, not giving them that extra access that they might need every once in 3 months, that is a fight that I have to take. Yeah, and when it comes to systems, we also invest quite a bit, so that's kind of, you know, the defense in depth principle. You just do not focus on one thing. Always have redundancy in your defense. When one fails, then the other one will kind of save your ass. So that's what we do.
Thank you. Then let's continue. If the new fact is that everyone is already hacked or will be hacked, Job, what do you think? What's the best to give as a response? How to then, what you said, make sure that they get out of it, knowing that you guys companies, yeah, focus on it.
No, I think what's very important is to acknowledge what I said, that you will be breached anyway, so you cannot train your people to avoid being breached. You can train your people to have the right culture, so that if something goes wrong, they will ring the bell and there's not a problem, and that happens. But I think right now, if you are a company and you either have a huge amount of data that's for whatever reason sensitive, it's customer data, or you cannot be without data for a couple of days in a row, you need to get professional help. That's very simple. You know, maybe larger companies are able to build their own security teams, but if you're a 40-employee company, that's impossible. We even see that with 1,000-employee companies, that's really not possible anymore. There are a lot of options out there. I know that you guys can help with that, with bringing the right options there. But you need professional help, you need professional technology, and to run that technology inside your company and to advise on that, that's something where you need professionals.
I would like to add, so I just heard the word NIS2. Actually, I think it's sad that we need to talk about NIS2, because of course we together can bring really great value to the market to help companies to be prepared. We can help them also being prepared, to help them to inform their customers when things go wrong, but that you have to be punished. If you don't take the right preparedness, if you don't inform your customers, it's really sad, actually. So it's quite a lot going on if you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but if I can add to that, I'm sorry, it's sad, but it's also highly necessary. So 1 out of 20 companies that we roll out security software, 1 out of 20 companies, they're already breached when we roll out. So that, imagine that you put smoke detectors in companies, 1 out of 20 companies, there is already actually a fire. That's the situation right now in Europe. So there are some reasons why government should be pushing a bit harder for companies to start taking measures.
Then, no, I think it's good as controversial.
That's sad.
It's great to see how controversial that topic is, even in one company, the same company. Let's do a short lightning round here in the whole group. Who knows if one's company is affected by NIS2? Is going to be the first question. And the second one, has anyone done something already? So first question, who knows if applicable, yes or no, for their own company? And who did already something? I mean, just the subsection of it. And that numbers, being also surprising perhaps for a lot of, are the same as we did like 3 months ago with the Handelsblatt webinar, that even like companies that are on the DAX they didn't even know if they're applicable. A lot of the participants, they're saying us. And that's, don't feel ashamed. I think that's my message here. It is controversial, and I think it would be great if everyone would protect the company themselves already. But I think, and perhaps as a good segue, is that what we see is that the budgets are not increasing, although we have to do more. I think if like the risk increases, if with a lot of reasons, technology, political landscape also. I think you guys can talk more afterwards. But if in fact the budgets for cyber are not increasing, I think that is also not a change. And how have you, Christoph, perhaps in a small setting, made sure that you can change stuff, although budgets are tight, as in all other companies too?
Yeah, I mean, so the good news for us is we don't have a lot of fat in our budgets anyway. So we are forced to, and if I was telling in the conversation, if I think of what is like our headcount purely for IT security in a company of 40 people, it's like this, like half of me or something. So, so we can't cut budget. What we can do is overall upskilling our employees so everyone can do their share, from the developers, from myself as the internal contact person to it. We can, and that's an interesting negotiation with our customers, because nothing is for free. So part of the risks are increasing, but also, so I think we're not affected by NIS2, but we are affected by a proliferation of certifications. So that, and sometimes, you know, sometimes they help increase security, but sometimes they just help increase overhead. So the one thing that we're trying, and it's a conversation for the customers, saying that additional security is not free, and there's a certain price premium. So then we can fund it. We can fund every company-specific extra overhead for the company-specific risk thing. But for us, it's more, so there's no budget to cut, because we do the essential things to keep our customers safe. As I said, we don't have a lot of overhead, and we try to, those people, those companies who are asking for more security, have to price it in at some point. But it's an interesting discussion, because we keep raising requirements, including punitive damages, that kind of thing. I mean, as a society, we want more security, but nobody seems to want to pay for it. You know,
Vladyslav, how do you show the value of your team to people that have to decide, CFOs and so on budget?
That's good. Internally or externally to our clients? So internally, we have a really good buy-in. So to be honest, I never had a challenge of having to prove like, hey, we need more people, or we need to mitigate some risks. Budgets are, of course, not endless, yeah. And maybe to the point of having the need for certifications is, we shouldn't need these certifications and these laws to make companies secure. And change my mind. At the same time, the reality is disappointing. So, referring to Job's statistic, 1 in 20, right? Yeah, is already breached. So that is why it's there. So normally, I would say, the company where I work, About You, has two business models. One is direct to customer, another one is software as a service. And on the B2C side, honestly, no one ever came to us from our customers and asked like, hey, are you secure? And but on the B2B side, every single customer comes to us and wants to know how we do security. So it ranged from filling in some questionnaire, sometimes maybe going on a call with the security contact from that company. Recently, we have seen more push for the actual certifications, and that is why we were kind of forced to do them. Yeah, so personally, I'm convinced that this extra work can be, or these resources that we're going to put now into having an ISO 27001 or a SOC 2 Type 2 report can be utilized much, much better. At the same time, our business customers find it very valuable. So it also simplifies our life. Instead of, for example, me having to go on a call for 2 hours and explain how we do security, I could just like, here, look, there's this report, you can read it. If you have any questions, come back to me. So yeah, that's what I think.
Christoph, how was it for you? I know that you guys are having certifications, so Did it help?
It certainly helps from a business perspective. It's just where's the equilibrium? Where's the sweet spot? So when we did TSAX 3 years ago with the help of your team, so big thanks again. Then that we had a pace where it actually worked pretty much as it was meant. So you do TSAX once, and all German car makers accept it, and everyone wins. You know, we do it once, and everyone saves resources that, as you said, we can put into actual, also practical work, which I could put into whatever, more headcount for me. Nowadays we see a tendency that that's the entry card, but then plus every individual car maker is now, for example, asking for additional risk certification. So, and some of it, you know, some of it contains angles that are not covered by TSAC, so I can say I can implement that and it's actually increasing security. Sometimes it's more a map setting of having my set of policies and documents mapped against another set of requirements with another set of procedures. And then when then on the checking side, there is not enough funding for enough people to do it, it can become, or we have to be careful it doesn't become an end in itself. Because the end in itself, as you say, the end in itself should not be having a certification, it should be being secure. And where's the sweet spot for between, like, where does certificates help and where do we add to, which is a complex of certification providers, auditors, all these kinds of things. So where does it become an industry in itself? And that's the challenge for us. But it can definitely help, but it's not an end in itself. No.
Yeah, interesting. Job and Wouter, what are the best ROI measures that you've seen on the market in general? So, dependent on the companies, obviously, but what are the things that you say, hey, those things, there's 80% plus that you should do?
I think it's very simple. The average breach for smaller companies is 360,000 euros, larger companies 3.7 euros, 3.7 million euros. You have a 20%.
3.7 euros would be nice.
Don't worry, it will be more. You have a 20% chance of being breached, average company. So, I mean, there's your business case. It's very simple. I think Aon, one of our larger partners here in Germany, just came out with a new report. For larger companies, there's a 9% shareholder value drop at the moment they get breached. Well, these kind of percentages, I think it's a very easy business case. And I think there's many solutions out there now that for 10, 15 euros per workplace, you have them fully secured. So I really don't think there's a reason not to do it. But I think the business case is getting more and more simple. And I think more and more entrepreneurs, also in the medium and smaller segment, are understanding that this is not anymore a nice to have, but this is just, you know, this is a passport for doing business.
Yeah, so in addition to that, NIS2 will help also, because you will be personally liable in the future. Yeah. And I mean, in Germany last year, you know, Bitkom presented some figures. The impact of cyber attacks in Germany was 207 billion euros. So a lot of entrepreneurs say, you know, it's far from my bed, it's not important. The moment the neighbor has an issue, they want to be helped. and how long do we need to wait? I mean, it's a matter of time.
Thank you all. I would say let's open the floor to questions remotely or here on site. We have a question over there.
Question where? Raise hand. Go this way.
Just one question. You touched it a little bit when talking about the developers. A couple of years ago, you distinguished, or the business distinguished a lot between external risks and internal risks. Is this still a discussion, or is, because if I look at panels like this, it's always just talking about risks and there's no difference between those two. Is this now the new way of thinking, or is there still a discussion between the two?
Yeah, I think it connects really into what I mentioned before, is the assumed breach. And where the breach comes from, I as a security provider, I don't really care. You know, whether your whole SharePoint is being downloaded by one of the employees or by an external event. What for us is a trigger that all of a sudden your SharePoint is being downloaded in full. And that's something we will look into, like why is that happening? And that's the same with you know, if someone clicks on a Teams link, that's always a combination, you know, of an external factor and an internal factor of an employee doing that. So I think from a technical security perspective, as we are looking at, I think as you are looking at, it starts to matter less and less.
Yeah, definitely. So I think external versus internal, it just increases the likelihood. So if you give way too many permissions to your internal employees, it increases the likelihood of a certain risk occurring. Yeah, and if you decrease that, you just decrease the likelihood. But the impact will be the same, and the action is the same. So just treating them as the same thing, monitoring it, no matter if it's internal or external, is equally important.
And overall, I think also the border between internal and external is blurring anyway. We have so many different scenarios, like what's the core company versus outsourced services versus freelancers versus, so you share systems, you share data flow. So I think it's quite hard to draw that line. It's,
Any other question here on the floor? Yes.
To all people out there, what about the business case regarding to the cyber insurance pricing? Because it grew a lot in the past, and it's very dependent on the approach that you take handling this risk.
Yeah. Well, we are a cybersecurity company. We provide cyber insurance. We're launching a 30% discount insurance next week.
Code DataGuard.
Prices have been going absolutely through the roof, but what you have to understand, there's a reason behind it. That's because the risk is just getting too high. I mean, at this moment, it's not even so more about the pricing of the insurance; it's about whether your company will get it at all. Because you know, if you're at 20% risk of getting breached, and we're talking about 360,000 euros or 3.7 million euros, no one is going to insure you. So the insurance companies are more and more demanding higher levels of technical security that you have to implement before you will get the insurance at all. It's also a very interesting way to look at your company. So if no one wants to insure your company, if you own the company, you have to start asking yourself the question, why is that?
And there's also no coincidence in this too. If you look at the critical industries and the correlation to insurance premiums, you have your answer.
Yeah, we did cyber insurance internally at About You, and we got interrogated. So it was almost the whole day. We had prepared a huge presentation. Yeah, but I really agree with the point that if you get the cyber insurance, it's a good leverage. Also, you can showcase it to your clients that, hey, first of all, I'm insured. And second of all, if you can somehow showcase that you pay a premium lower than maybe your competitors, then your security is better. Because the insurance companies, they know what they're doing. It's their job. Yeah, they evaluate you, and you will pay the amount that is very much correlated with your security level. So that's a good thing to use.
For next time, we only ask 8 questions.
Yeah. Okay. But it's an interesting observation, because you guys, then when you're selling, you actually have skin in the game, right? If you miss a risk, you pay for it. If somebody else, internal, external auditors, sometimes the distance between the audit and the potential risk, it may not affect you, So maybe I think it's an interesting point that from an insurance perspective, if you are kind of directly affected by your lack of oversight, I think that's a very interesting point,
Yeah, I think in general what you see is that I think the insurance industry right now is giving the biggest push into security measures. No matter what the government says, no matter what all kind of certifications do, but in the end, the insurance providers, the capacity providers, because they have skin in the game, they are going to determine what you need to do, and that's also why they're a very interesting partner to talk with.
Perfect. So big round of applause for the panel. Thank you very much, everyone.